Hi, I'm Brian Freer, tutoring high school biology. Today's topic, the circulatory and respiratory systems. Well, you know pretty much what the circulatory system does. It has a heart which pumps blood throughout your body. Blood will carry oxygen and nutrients to cells, carbon dioxide, and waste away from cells. But let's take a look at them. The three main blood-carrying vessels of the circulatory system are the arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. That means they'll have oxygen-rich blood, with the exception of the pulmonary artery, which carries blood from the heart to the lungs. This will have oxygen-poor blood because it's going to the lungs to fill up on oxygen. Veins carry blood toward the heart. This means they'll have oxygen-poor blood, with the exception of the pulmonary vein, which comes from the lungs to the heart. It is oxygen-rich blood to be pumped to the rest of the body. Last up, the capillaries. These connect arteries to veins and become very thin, as much as 1 cell thick. Now, what you'll generally see is an artery running along and suddenly branching out into a bunch of capillaries and then coming back to form a vein. Why? The smallness of capillaries allows them to cater to a lot of cells at once, to diffuse to a lot of cells at once. It increases the surface area as well, and cells are usually located very close to a capillary. So, this is where all the diffusion takes place. Alright, now let's take a look at the heart. Humans have a 4-chambered heart. Right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Everything on the right side of the heart contains oxygen-poor blood. Everything on the left side contains oxygen-rich blood. Let's see it in action. Oxygen-poor blood comes from the body to the vena cava. The vena cava is the main vein of the body. It then enters the heart through the vena cava into the right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle, where it is pumped through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Once it reaches the lungs, it fills up on oxygen, becomes oxygen-rich, and blood returns to the heart through the pulmonary vein. It then enters the left atrium, filters into the left ventricle, and is pumped to the body through the aorta, the body's main artery. And then the cycle repeats. Okay, but then where does it get all that oxygen? Respiratory system. Let's take a look at that next. It's made up of pretty much 2 parts, your trachea and your lungs. The trachea is the long tube that goes from your mouth to your lungs. It is lined with cells that have cilia, small hair-like appendages that'll wipe away dust and stuff like that from contaminating the lungs. As for the lungs themselves, you'll notice that in my rough diagram, there's a bit of a branching here before you reach the lungs. These are known as bronchioles, and once you take a look inside the lungs, you'll see that bronchioles terminate in these things called alveoli. These are filled with bulbous sacs that contain air. Now, why bulbous? This actually increases the amount of surface area on the alveoli, which allows for diffusion. The alveoli are covered with capillaries, and so the more surface area they have, the faster diffusion can occur. When you breathe in, the alveoli fill with oxygen, which will diffuse into the capillaries. And also, the lungs will fill with carbon dioxide as it diffuses out of the capillaries. Then you exhale and the carbon dioxide leaves the body. And that's it for the respiratory system. To recap, the 3 main blood-carrying vessels of the circulatory system are arteries, which carry blood away from the heart, veins, which carry blood towards the heart, and capillaries, which connect arteries to veins and where all the diffusion occurs. Humans have a 4-chambered heart, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. The right side contains oxygen-poor blood, the left side contains oxygen-rich blood. Blood flows from the body into the heart through the vena cava. This is oxygen-poor blood. It enters the right atrium, filters to the right ventricle, and then is pumped through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, back to the heart through the pulmonary vein, enters the left atrium, filters to the left ventricle, pumped to the body through the aorta, the body's main artery, and the cycle repeats. As with the respiratory system, this consists of the trachea, the tube from your mouth to your lungs, which is lined by cilia, which will wipe away dust and other grit, and then it branches into bronchioles. These bronchioles terminate inside the lungs and are ended with alveoli, bulbous air sacs that have a lot of surface area that allow for diffusion. The alveoli are covered in capillaries, and that's where the diffusion takes place. Alright, that's all for now. Again, I'm Brian Freer. See you next time.